So my topic of discussion today is Petrus Botha, and I wanted to. I recently got a notification that he's single again. So I'm going to throw my hat into the ring of Petrus Botha's bachelorhood, because I think it would be fun to have a date since we never really had a date. Um, when we were together for a brief time. Um, what I first have to ask, though, is if I have grandchildren uh, by Petrus Botha. And I know I have children, Petrus Botha, but there's some stories buzzing around, so very many, um, that I might have grandchildren with Petrus Botha. And I know I'm opening myself up yet again to be the fodder of fun comedic review, but I don't care. Um, I think that um, still there's always question about which side of the card that he plays the big game of pregnancy and everything. I think he is probably one of those men who impregnated many women for political purposes, for monetary purposes, which I wasn't aware that I wasn't even aware that there were those kind of men um, when I got pregnant in 2007. Um, but evidently, both fathers, biological fathers of both of my children, very well may be two of those types of men. Um, and every time I speak, I can always see Charlotte and Jean. Charlotte and Jean are just bubbling up, trying to keep me in the place that they need me, which is as their little pawn, and they need me to need them, but I don't need them, and it's so odd that all I have to do is speak, and there they are. Um, I think that Petrus and Michael both knew about my inheritance and my land ownership rights, and that I have considerable amount of monetary inheritance and land ownership inheritance. Um, and I didn't, I wouldn't have funded the things that are popular. And so I wasn't given information about my inheritance, which is a large, very large sum of money. Um, to say that it doesn't hurt my feelings that Petrus constantly, Jean and Charlotte don't hurt my feelings, they irritate me. But to say that Petrus doesn't hurt my feelings, or Michael doesn't hurt my feelings, um, by constantly allowing the rumor of Leah being more important to either of them than myself and or our children that I had with Michael and Petrus, respectively, 20 years apart. Um, Prospectively, or it's interesting to take that word apart. But anyway, um, So it's benefited their psyches to keep me in the place of not knowing. And then he may have uh, assisted my younger sister Leah in trying to obtain my identity, because he had a lot, like my younger sister Leah already had plenty of connections in the drug cartels and in the party scenes, and like really like and then to throw Petrus Botha into the mix of Leah Freitas connections, and it really gets like a global sort of thing. So they've enjoyed my identity and my inheritance and have funded things I wouldn't have funded. And I think that the reason they did that was, one, for popularity purposes, because they're both they have egos that need to be popular. I've not ever again, I'm not bragging. I'm stating I can't think of the word now. With importance, I've not ever been someone who needed to be the most popular or at all. And in fact, when I was in elementary school, and I kind of was popular in elementary school because I was much more social when I was in elementary school. I really, in retrospect, I found it to be not a good position. I didn't like it because it was a constant race to keep ahead of everybody who was, and it still is, but maybe back then it probably wasn't, the popularity wasn't my motive back then either. But I was popular because everybody was trying to put me down, and I was like trying to stay ahead of everybody, trying to hold me in a place I didn't want to be. And for the past like decade and a half, I've been buried in what I've been trying to run from my entire life, because I don't need to hear other people's opinion of me, neither positive nor negative, because I know who I am and I know my purpose. I know Jesus put me on the earth for a certain reason. And I don't care who makes fun of me. As many times as I say that, I probably say it at least once a day. I don't know. But I have worked my way almost out of, or to the top of the or let's say, like, if the whirlpool, if the giant whirlpool or tornado, it feels more like a whirlpool, like a giant whirlpool that I was standing at the or drowning in the vortex of in 2012, when my daughter Elsa was in. And again, I was being swept under by this whirlpool. Starting, I can identify a time starting in like 2002, and I'm like maybe 10 feet, no, maybe 6 feet from the top edge of a 40-foot whirlpool. That's the way I feel. And that's like a mile wide. Maybe not 10, quite 10 feet, maybe like 15 feet. because I really don't feel like I'm three-quarters the way up the top of the wall of the whirlpool, but I am getting to the top edge. And Petrus, I really didn't see at the time that he was one of those egotist. I knew Michael was, because with Michael it was completely obvious, but it didn't. I just let Michael be Michael, and he let me be me. So it didn't really, except for when I started to suspect that he was cheating on me and stuff like that. And now all these years later, it's like, with everything that I know now that I didn't know when I was in my early 20s or even my early 40s. It's like to say different. I feel so socially immature to say that I found I discovered he was cheating on me, because it almost seems like the norm. And I've not ever cheated on any man that I've ever been with, except for, technically, if you want to say that I was dating Jeremy Kilpatrick, which I wasn't, but that relationship was really screwy anyway. So I don't consider that cheating, and I don't cheat. But to realize that cheating was the norm and actually the game, it was like, if you don't cheat, you're completely out of the realm of existence in a lot of people's eyes. And pretty much that's the type of people who I grew up with, who I just never knew that being a liar and a cheater and a scoundrel was so prominent. And I don't even know how to approach the phenomenon of dating, because I really don't want to date anyone. I don't want to engage in any kind of sexual relationship with anyone. I think there's too much disgusting stuff going on. So I have no desire. However, I would like to have my children and my children's fathers in my life. And I would like, honestly, to be able to control them the way that they've controlled me. And so if I start mistreating my children's fathers and start gossiping about them, well, and this isn't really gossip, this is like truth. That maybe they'll come closer to me. I know this sounds so freaking screwy to me, but I never understood, and I've talked about this before, I never understood that both of my sisters, my older sister and my younger sister, they were both married, and both of them treated men horribly. And I know I didn't. And every time I make a thing about this, then they go and take great efforts to then turn the table, so that when I go out and about, I'll hear um, tidbits of conversation. You were a bitch as I walk by and stuff like that. And that's the networks of people who swarm around who are, I think Sally Immel put it, damage control, when I worked at RAS Builders. And I didn't understand what she meant by that. I just remember that I was in her office in the morning doing the mail, as I was part of my job description. And somebody came in, I can't remember if it was Doug or John Madison, and she looked up at, I think it was John, and said to him, we got damage control to do, or something like that. And they both immediately knew what she was talking about. It was like he knew what she was saying, and I was just standing there like, gosh, that was weird. Wonder what that was about. And now I understand what damage control is. And having networks and groups of people surrounding your source of financing, knowing that your source of financing knows nothing about the amount of money that they're worth. Damage control is that they're using my money to pay people to surround me, to keep me in a place where is like nothing even close to where I should be financially and with my children in my life. Friends, who cares? You know, if I had the checkbook of what I should have, I'd pay for friends just like everybody else, but I wouldn't need to go out partying. I'd be like, okay, yeah, you're a friend here, you know, go get this done. And that would be that. I don't need to be a part of a partying crowd. I need my children in my life on a regular basis. And I was talking to somebody on the bus the other day, and it was interesting because I can rarely get someone to engage in a conversation on a level of knowledge to which I have. And we talked about, and I don't even know if these two people who the one person I was speaking with more, the other person was just sitting there like a peripheral. But we talked about a lot of different subjects. And the most important thing was that I think that he understood what I was saying when I said that when they took my children from me, they knew it was a strategic move, politically strategic, financially strategic, intellectually strategic, because they knew my intelligence level, they knew my daughter's intelligence level, and they knew Petrus's intelligence level. They knew my connections, different things that I was involved in isn't the right word, but different connections that I had, for instance, with the FBI. And they knew that I wasn't going to participate in the things that they were participating in. And when they took my children, they denied me an intellectual growth with my children. So they took my children. They took my identity when they took my children. They took a big part of my emotional well-being when they took my children. They broke the law, the Constitution of the United States, by taking my children. They just by birthright, that's it's like, do these I'm getting frustrated, because it's like, I would not ever I would not ever dream. My sister, when my nephew was a little boy, and I'm sorry, Nathan, but I have to tell this story again. When he was a little boy, and I used to watch him every day before I had my daughter. And my younger sister went to the bar every night. Every night. If Leah spent 2 hours of the day in the house, let's see, she would roll out of bed, roll in the house like around 4 a.m., bouncing like a pinball from one wall to the other down the hall to her bedroom at 2408 Greenheart Lane. And she would roll back out. So she'd roll out of bed about, I'd say about between 10 and noon. And then she'd be gone by 1. And she wouldn't be back again until 4 in the morning. And she never asked, hey, Dawn, or hey, Charlotte, or hey, Jean, can you watch Nathan for the day? She never asked. She just left, knowing. And then later on, a few years later, then she played the card of resentment that I cared so much about her son, because she abandoned him every single night without any. Anyway, so when he was little and she did that, and Leah did that, I forgot the point of why I was telling this story. I didn't do that to my children. I was not ever, I didn't. Oh, I know what it was. And Charlotte had said to me, and then when I tell this story, and I tell this part of this story, then the next thing I know, I go out and around, and then the table is turned. Oh, well, you should have filed for custody of your nephew and not let him go to Holland with his mother, blah, blah, blah. It's not my belief system. Charlotte said to me, Dawn, I'm going to file custody of Nathan. I said, Mother, you can't do that. And this was when my younger sister Leah was planning to move to Holland with Stephen Freda, and she was pregnant. And I was like, I just simply said, Charlotte, you can't do that. And so it's almost like I blocked Charlotte from doing that to my younger sister and my nephew. And the reason that I did was, one, there must have been it wasn't solidified in my mind. Like, I didn't say, Mother, I don't believe in that. But I said, you can't do that. And so it's almost like, because I blocked Charlotte from taking Nathan from my sister Leah, and maybe it would have been the right thing to do. I don't know, because I don't know what went on after they left. But I'm not going to carry the cross because I stepped in and said, told Charlotte she can't do that. But I truly don't believe in taking children from their biological mothers. And I didn't realize when I was young what the big thing was all the time. And it was really started to come to like the forefront of publicity and the media topic in media around the time. And then the whole divorce and custody battles and everything. And I don't know. It was like, you were supposed to take a side one way or the other, but I didn't realize the the rights of a biological mother, because it wasn't part of my world. It wasn't part of um it wasn't any of my business, to see all these custody battles on television and all this stuff. I I was a young mother at the time, and I couldn't get involved in other people's. I had friends who were, or one friend who was going through, and I found that to be so disheartening, and so, because they had that type of divorce, and where they were dragging each other to court, and went on for several years. And I, as a friend to the mother from high school, I could not, all I could do was sit and listen. And it was, to me, it was horrible. And I have to say that I learned, and I remember thinking to myself, I will never put my children through what my high school friend put her children through. Because people don't realize how important children are to our futures, to our futures. And they've treated children as though they're like peripherals, like these little decorations. Some of them treat children just like they're an accessory. And that's very irritating. Because children have so much more importance to the future of humankind. I don't like the word kind, because I know it's associated with a certain clothing line that is, I don't know if it's even still around, but it was a black and white style of clothing. And like I said, and it was sold at Target. And I don't know if it's still around, but that's why I don't like using it, because it was like, one of the slogans was, "It's cool to be kind." And so then that's attached in to not such great things that a good mother doesn't want her children to be associated with the things that I know that slogan was attached to. So to have a children's clothing line, this is how deeply I have had to pay attention to things. And it's so frustrating to be aware of so much, and the number of people who are out being peripherals, and they're out being professional taggers and professional tigers, like when somebody's developing an internet site. Um, um, I get so fed up just even when I'm talking about this stuff, but it every time I walk outside my front door, I have to deal with the same thing. And I get so tired and fed up with people who are supposed to be prominent members of the community, and they're just like, most of them are so old that the only thing they really care about is going out and looking good and trying to pretend like they have no involvement in any of the politics and the way that economics have been run. They had no knowledge of any of this. And yes, that's what I can honestly say about myself. But now that I know, I can't shut up about it. I can't shut up about what I see, and I can't, and that's within the way the economy runs. I can't shut up about knowing how children are used and how youth are used and how Jean and Charlotte aren't the only quote unquote parents um, who had children. And again, I still don't believe that they're my biological parents. Um, but they treated us, particularly JFH2, but then Charlotte began to be the same way. Charlotte was always abusive and neglectful, but she wasn't like JFH2 was abusive and disgusting and insidiously seedy, and but he also treated us like we were pawns in his plan for his future financial whatever. And and I realized that a lot more people were like that. And then they go into the, well, what do you think, how do you think things, farmers had children so they'd have people have help work in the farm. You know what, this isn't 1620 or 1850, or to constantly use the past, which we're supposedly, grown from our, as you grow as a person, you're born, you're a child, you grow emotionally, intellectually, and you learn from your mistakes. So if to constantly use the past as a crutch for the way that they did things in when I was a child, it's they weren't taking responsibility for anything but themselves and their own plan for their own futures, and were four pawns in their whatever. Um, again, this I can't. I can't. Somebody's got their eyes on my knee right now. I'm not going to be on my knees to anybody. I was at the bus depot yesterday, and there was a guy and another guy and another guy and a girl who was sleeping on the on the bench, and it's the most disgusting bus depot. 2 Sundays ago, I came out of church and I had to go to the went to the bus depot to catch the bus. And I'm at the bus depot, and there's a guy on a Sunday afternoon, middle of the day, and I hate talking about this stuff because I don't want to give permission or create a vehicle for that behavior to get worse than it already is. And there's a guy who's practically completely naked. This was 2 Sundays ago. Not one adult, not one adult said anything to him. Hey, dude, and I'm not saying, hey, dude, I'm going to write you a ticket because you're, da 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 da, because I'm not covering any of it. Um, I'm saying, somebody could have said, hey, dude, you gotta and I know that he was one of those loose wire kind of uh, uh, but you can't, as a community, just sit by and let the community deteriorate in the way that it has. Um, is everybody too guilty to be able to say something or talk about it or say, we really got to get? It just feels like everything is like one big party, and everybody just goes and does and da, 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 and excuse me, that woman over there, she's not partying, she's not doing drugs, she's not smoking anymore. um we got to get hold of her, and we're gonna freaking nail her with everything that's going on, because she makes us feel uncomfortable. When she comes around, we suddenly feel like we're doing something wrong. Or not doing something right. There's a screeching outside. It is as though since 2001 that the goal has been to make the norm to be opposite of what innocence can survive in. And the guy that I was talking to at the bus depot yesterday, he's sitting there with this other guy. And I said to the one guy, "You're displaying pimp body language of a pimp," because he was. And then they start that whole, "Oh, what you, what you taught me? Oh, I got the body language," and all this back and forth, like it's a big joke. Like I don't have any idea it's an ignorance of my intelligence and everything is.